So guys, we have made it to the World Cup break. This will be the last prediction video before we do have this elongated international break to go ahead and fit in the World Cup. But plenty of exciting games coming up over this weekend, and I'm going to predict that the Championship is going to go out with a bang, particularly with a few of the fixtures that we have got going on this weekend. We've also got the midweek matches to go ahead and round up throughout today's video as well. So as always, if you do going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get all your thoughts in the comments down below. Without any further ado though, let's hop into the matches. And starting out with the Friday night game between Birmingham and Sunderland. Birmingham were in action in midweek, played out that 2-2 draw with Swansea. Did take the lead quite early on in that game, but had to rely on a last-minute Troy Deeney equaliser to forge it back to 2-2. Perhaps you could make the argument of Sunderland maybe being a little bit more fresh for this one, given the fact they weren't in action in midweek. They've had that extra little bit of recovery, and generally speaking on the road so far this season, Sunderland have been decent. They've won more matches on the road than they actually have at the Stadium of Light so far this season. Birmingham have looked pretty competitive in all the matches they have played recently, albeit have been fairly draw heavy at home so far this season. They've drawn 5 of their 10 home matches this far into the season, and you know what? I wouldn't put it past this one being a draw either. I'm going to go for a 1-1er between these two, and I'm going to back it to end level. Next then to Bristol City up against Watford. Both these sides were in action in midweek. Bristol City in the Cup, Watford in the Championship. Good stuff from Watford. 2-0 victors in the end against Reading. João Pedro with a brace in that one. Took his second goal especially really quite well. The problem with Watford is you never quite know which side is going to turn up, but to be fair to them, they have now won 4 of their last 5 matches, and should they take that confidence from midweek into this one, I think they walk into this one as the favourites, given all the inconsistency that's been happening around Bristol City as of late. I don't know how much you can read into a cup defeat when you go ahead and make 8 changes, but to lose the game in the manner of which they did to Lincoln, 3-1 in the end, I think it continues to sort of pile the pressure on Pearson there, because, I mean, even stretching back to their Championship record as of late, it's not been particularly pretty reading for Bristol City. I thought at the weekend they got fairly fortunate to walk away with a point from Middlesbrough, given all the chances that Borough had in that game. I think Watford take this one on the road. 2-1 Watford is my score prediction for this one. I think the Hornets take it. After that, for Cardiff up against Sheffield United. Both sides looking to bounce back from quite disappointing midweek results. Cardiff obviously coming off the back of that 1-0 win away at Sunderland. Seemed like a decent opportunity to follow up against a Hull City side who have been struggling for consistency themselves this season. But yeah, some real slack defending in that one. The positive to take from it, obviously getting Robinson back, getting him back within the goals as well. But I think disappointing how they sort of let that game get away from them. Going up against the Sheffield United side, who I have to admit I did not see that result coming in midweek. Maybe it was a case of just how much, energy they'd actually expended in that game against Burnley. In the end, had sort of sucked the life out of them for that midweek fixture against Rotherham. But yeah, they looked a shadow of themselves in that game, didn't they? Fell to a 1-0 defeat in the end and didn't really look like up in the tempo for much of that one. Just feel as if now that we are getting to that stage where it's 1 game left before the break, teams will be a little bit more sort of willing to put everything into this performance, and for that reasoning, I think Sheffield United may be the more likely to bounce back. So score prediction, I'm going to go 2-0 to the Blades. Next then, and to Coventry up against QPR. Two sides who are going in opposite directions at the moment. Coventry made it 3 wins on the bounce in midweek with that 2-0 win over Wigan, and coincidentally, if Coventry win this game, they'll only be 2 points behind QPR with 2 games in hand going into the World Cup break, which is crazy considering, this Coventry side were rooted to the bottom of the Championship just a few weeks ago, and QPR were obviously riding high right at the top. But it goes to show how quickly the form book can go ahead and switch. It was another defeat for QPR in midweek. Having taken the lead against Huddersfield, they hit them on 2 set-piece scenarios. Really frustrating one for QPR. They had 36 shots in that game and walked away ultimately empty-handed. Really wasteful in the final third in what turned out to be a largely frustrating evening. And I think that going off the form book at the moment, it's Coventry who I have to back in this game. 2-1 Cov, I'm saying, between these two, although I do see it being quite a closely contested one. After that, for Huddersfield up against Swansea. Brilliant result for Huddersfield in midweek, one which I for one did not see coming. But yeah, they had to hold out in the end. Fair play play to Josh Ruffles, by the way. That second goal was absolutely outrageous, but had 36 shots against them, but managed to hold out for all 3 points. Goals had been somewhat of an issue for that Huddersfield side going into that midweek game, but I think they'll take quite a bit of confidence from that win. Obviously, 2 more goals coming from sort of set-piece scenarios, and that is a place where I think you can target this Swansea side at the moment, who have been quite suspect at the back. Obviously, they played out another 2-2 draw themselves in midweek, 2-2 against Birmingham. Some really quite well-crafted goals from Swansea, to be fair, but once again letting themselves down in the back end of the pitch. They've now kept just 1 clean sheet across their last 10 matches. This seems like the sort of game where Huddersfield will be happy to soak up some pressure. Swansea will have plenty of the ball, but I can see the home side getting some joy from those set-piece scenarios and long balls and crosses coming into the box. So score prediction, I think I'm going to go on as even. 1-1 between these two. Don't think there'll be all too much in it. Next then to Hull up against Reading. Fair play to Liam Rosenior. Instant impact there in at Hull. 4 points from his first couple of matches. Hull, to be fair to them, have been really quite good on the road lately. 10 points from their last 4 away matches. It's now going to be the job of Rosenior to go ahead and start replicating that form at home, where they have come across some struggles so far this season. Dare I say it, I think it is a decent time to be playing Reading at the moment. They've looked really off the pace over these last few weeks. I think we all accepted and knew that at some point there probably would have been a fall off from Reading. You know, they were playing at quite an unsustainably good rate at the start of the season, but perhaps we didn't expect quite the fall off to this degree. It's now just 1 win across their last 9 championship matches for Reading. Another 2-0 defeat over the midweek schedule against Watford. I think it's Hull who probably take this one. Rosenior just seems to have those players up and at it at the moment. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Hull in this game. Reading just looked a little bit all over the place lately. Next then we go to Luton up against Rotherham. Plenty of moving plates when it comes to Luton at this stage in time. Now, as of recording, the Nathan Jones to Southampton situation is continuing to develop, and by the time you guys are watching, you'll have more intel on this, and it's difficult to say how that will go ahead and influence the result of this match. Obviously, the game Luton had in midweek, 2-0 loss against Stoke. For whatever reason, Stoke always seem to have Luton's number. In terms of the overall performance, I didn't think it was necessarily the worst in the world from Luton, but 2 quite similar goals they ended up conceding. Had plenty of the ball, had quite a few shots, but it just didn't fall for them in that game. And I do see this one, with everything going on in the background at Luton at the moment, being a potential banana skin for them as well. It was an unbelievable result for Rotherham in midweek to get all 3 points away at Sheffield United. Don't think all too many sides will go ahead and do that this season, and they got the blueprint for that away performance absolutely spot on. And with all the distractions that are at Luton at the moment, I think I'm going to sit on the fence for this one and go for a 1-1 draw. It's a very difficult one to call with that set of circumstances at Luton at the moment. So 1-1 I'm saying. Next then to Carrow Road for Norwich up against Middlesbrough. I think this one has the potential to be quite an entertaining game actually. Norwich, while they did have that recent wobble, have picked things up as of late. 7 points from their last 3 matches, and going up against the Middlesbrough side, who I thought looked really quite good in midweek actually. 3-0 winners against Blackpool in the end. We spoke about after that performance over the weekend against Bristol City, the gradual improvements that I think we've seen under Carrick. You know, they got desperately unlucky to have not gone ahead and won that match given all the chances they had, and so to follow it up with that performance and result in midweek against Blackpool, I think will really start to spark a bit of confidence and life into this group at Middlesbrough. While Norwich have picked things up, I still think there is maybe a little bit of a vulnerability with them at the back. I do see quite a few goals being scored here. Score prediction, I'm going to go for an entertaining 2-2 draw. Fancy a few goals in there. Next then to Deepdale for Preston North End up against Millwall, a game where I don't see a whole bunch of goals being scored, if I'm being honest. It's Preston who have scored fewer goals at home than any other Championship side, up against the Millwall side who have scored fewer goals on the road than any other Championship side. So yeah, 0-0 probably written all over this one. Preston have picked things up as of late though, with 3 consecutive wins. We've absolutely flown up the league as a result of those, and having this extra bit of rest, obviously us not being in action in midweek also didn't play, and you know, we played a little bit earlier as well on the weekend on that Friday night, so that will have been helpful hopeful to get a bit more time and planning into this one. Millwall, been an air of frustration about them recently with back-to-back goalless draws. I'm sure the Millwall fans will be desperate to see them hitting the back of the net a little bit more. And to be fair, Millwall have been somewhat of a bogey side for North End lately. We've not won any of our last 6 matches up against Millwall, but we had a very similar head-to-head record against Reading, and obviously we managed to turn that one around last time. So score prediction, 0-0 wouldn't surprise me, but I'll just edge North End with home advantage and say 1-0, but yeah, don't see a lot of goals in that at all. To the Hawthorns we go for West Brom up against Stoke. Decent result for Stoke in midweek, a result which was much needed, 2-0 against Luton. A fixture in which they have had Luton's number over the last few years, it would seem. Stoke's real issue with this season though has been nailing down consistency, and for that reason it's been tough to get a proper reading on them. I think they've only strung together back-to-back wins once throughout this season so far, so this will be another opportunity to do so, but up against the West Brom side who are slowly finding their feet under Corberan. Don't get me wrong, I still think there's a hell of a long way to go in terms of, you know, coaching this team into a cohesive system in which they're hitting the levels that we probably expected of them at the start of the season. But back-to-back 1-0 wins for West Brom is somewhere for the new manager to start. From a Stoke point of view, absolutely massive to have got Harry Souttar back. Him back in action in midweek is brilliant to see. You know, we shouldn't forget the levels he was hitting before that injury. He was, you know, one of the best centre-halves in the Championship and on a trajectory to becoming a Premier League player before that injury derailed him. For a score prediction in this one though, I just have a reluctancy to back Stoke consistency, and so I'm going to go along with the West Brom 1-0 win train continuing. 1-0 West Brom, I'm saying in this game, but Stoke have been a tricky side to read all year. And then to the DW for Wigan up against Blackpool, two sides who could desperately do with all 3 points to turn around their fortunes in this one. After the midweek fixtures we had, Wigan are now 23rd in the Championship. They've been on this torrid run of form for really quite some time now, and going up against the Blackpool side who themselves things aren't all singing and dancing at the moment. They've lost their last 3 matches, really ugly defeat in the manner of which that performance came around against Middlesbrough, and I mean this is a real opportunity here for Wigan. You know, should they go ahead and win this one, they would plummet Blackpool into that bottom 3 and leapfrog them in the process. It's two sides who as of late haven't been playing with a great deal of confidence. From Blackpool's perspective, they've not hit the back of the net in any of their last 3 matches. I think if we think about the blueprint and way in which Michael Appleton wants to play, you know, even at their worst he wants them to be, you know, consistently hitting the back of the net, but that's not been happening lately. It's a tough one to read because Wigan themselves haven't exactly been watertight at the back recently. It was a 2-0 defeat for them, of course, in midweek, and to be fair to Appleton, he does seem to have it in him to get these Blackpool players up for these local sorts of matches. You know, thinking back to that 3-3 draw and that comeback against Burnley, the win against North End as well. I'm going to go for an entertaining game, but an unhelpful 2-2 draw between these two, because 3 points would be massive for either side there. And then to round off the video for today, and to round off the Championship before this international break, on Sunday we have an absolute cracker at Turf Moor between Burnley and Blackburn. I mean, this one has been hyped up for quite some time now, and it is fitting that it is the last game before the international break. It's also fitting that these two sides are currently the top 2 of the Championship, and I am expecting fireworks here. The atmosphere is going to be brilliant, but on the pitch as well, I'm also expecting really quite a good technical game of football. I think it's interesting that the styles of play here will be a little bit of a clash, and in some instances I think each team could play into each other's strengths and weaknesses. You know, Burnley will look to dominate the ball, get on top in those early exchanges, and that will suit Blackburn's sort of game plan, happy to soak up the pressure and then just hit teams on the counter-attack. Both sides were obviously in action over the midweek period in the EFL Cup, but I'm not going to read all too much into those games. Obviously going back to the weekend with Burnley, losing that game in the manner of which they did against Sheffield United, maybe that could have even been a little bit of a blessing in disguise before this game, in the fact that complacency won't set in on this Burnley squad, and company will have them absolutely drilled down to the ground for this one. In terms of Burnley's home record, it's been fantastic so far this season. They are yet to lose a match at Turf Moor. Blackburn been a little bit more spotty on the road. They've had 4 wins, 6 losses, no draws as of yet, and Blackburn have been that sort of all or nothing side so far this season. For a score prediction for me personally, I really wouldn't be surprised to see this one going either way, because even when Blackburn haven't been at their best, they do have those killers on the break who can absolutely do you in just one moment of weakness, and as Burnley showed over the weekend, they do have those vulnerabilities. With that being said, I do think Burnley are the more cohesive side here, and I think in a game like this where you need to keep your cool, maybe that comes out on top. Score prediction, I'm going to back Burnley here. 2-1 to the home side I'm going, but I'm expecting a good game. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video, and it will wrap it up for the championship predictions for the time being. We have got a few weeks of break before we go ahead and dive back into the championship action at the back end of December. So as always, do get your score predictions in the comments down below. Everything going on in the championship, let me know your thoughts on it at the moment. If you did go on to enjoy, do leave a like and stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content, and I'll see you all in the next one.